going on, everybody? I am Jimmy Don Kerr, and this is the SmallTown Collectibles YouTube channel. My guest today is a gentleman that I became familiar with pretty early on in my YouTube journey and Instagram journey into the comic book community. I've even purchased a mystery box from this guy. He has two loves: comic books and metal detecting, and I cannot wait. I told him before we came on I could literally do two separate 10 questions, one for each of those topics, but we'll try to fit it all into this one. Everybody join me in welcoming to 10 questions the one and only Digger Jim.
Hey guys, thank you for having me, Jimmy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. No, I'm excited to talk to you. I think come across you pretty early on. Somehow I ended up in this lucky VIP chat. I think you're in there too.
Yeah.
I think Jimmy Jam's garage sale, put me in after buying a few boxes off him. And and that's a great chat. I'm not a real active chat guy, but I read them all.
Right.
That one's a good one. That's actually a pretty good chat to be in. Those guys have a lot of knowledge and doing all that. So Jim, question one's the same for everybody, man. What or who got you into comic books?
It would have to be my next door neighbor's son. Gave me, when I was young, real young, gave me like an early XMen 77 or so. No cover, no nothing. He's like, here, read this. And to be honest with you, when I was younger, I struggled with reading. They did not have a lot of back then. They didn't have a lot of knowledge on reading disabilities, dyslexia. I'm a firm believer that I have it because I was terrible at reading, terrible at math. It was a fight for me. So when he gave me that comic, I was like, it opened something up. It was something, not just words on a page, it had visual stimulation as well. So I was able to go, I like this, but I'm a kid. How do I get more of them? So I would pester my dad every once in a while when we'd go to the 7-Eleven and be like, hey, can I at least, can I get some comics? He'd like, you can get one. So it's like, one, there's like 30 on this spinner rack here. But I would get like XMen or Spider-Man or something that I liked, a Superman, because I grew up in that period where Superman was on the movie screen. So I would have to blame my next door neighbor's son for getting me started in it, but it really helped me move forward as a reader. If that
That's
makes
cool.
sense.
That's cool. No, that makes total sense. I know, I have two nephews that are smaller, and I've been buying them books like the Marvel, what's it called? Like Origins. Like it's been, it's made for kids.
Right.
And so I've been buying them some of those. And my sister said that it's really, in one of them especially, the other one I already kind of like to read, but the other one, it's actually kind of sparked something for him as well.
Sure.
And this is, I've never asked anybody this, but I've always kind of wondered this as far as like, when you go into the store, because I had a similar experience, right? I would go into it was called the supermarket here is what we called it, the grocery store. And they didn't have a spinner rack, but they had this rack, like a magazine rack. And you would go over and there would be comic books on it. And you're right, there would be 30. And I'd get the same answer. Can I get some comic books? Well, you can get one. I would get that same answer, right? So, and this was, before I really started running with my uncle and doing those things. And it was really hard to choose.
Right.
Like what one you would pick out. Like when you were sitting there looking at those books, is there anything that you remember that like, okay, that stood out?
Right. And it's always going to come down to what was it during, this would have been 78. I mean, I was 76, 78, all in the 70s. I mean, I was in that middle ground between 70s and the early 80s. And like I said, it's probably going to be either Batman, Superman, or Spider-Man. I like the X-Men. I read the X-Men book and it was great, but those are was prevalent. I mean, Superman, George Reeves, Batman was on, the TV show was on, and Spider-Man was everywhere. So I probably grabbed one of those three, just because they were ones that I recognized.
And I remember, like, that's why I love Firestorm to this
Yeah.
day, is because there was something about the Firestorm character that when I saw it visually, it like grabbed me. Like, I was
Hmm.
like, dude, that's cool. The dude's hair's on fire. I don't know. And it was, like, it was cool. And there was something about it. And then obviously Superman, I'm a huge Superman fan.
Yeah.
So, and I forget who I had this discussion with, but somebody, like there are a lot of huge X-Men fan out there, and I'm not one. Like, I enjoy the X-Men, I enjoy the movies, I enjoy
Sure.
those things, but I think I'm not of that generation. I think you're probably similar,
Yeah.
where we were more Superman. Christopher Reeves was Superman,
Right.
was on the big screen, and like I said, so are you an X-Men fan now? Like, that was kind of the first book you got. Like, are you a big X-Men fan now?
Well, I'm an X-Men. I'm an X-Men fan because of the fact that in the in the early '80s was when it was that Chris Claremont, John Byrne run,
Yeah,
and I love John Byrne art, and so that's what drew it to me. And then I started reading the story, going, I can relate to this in a way because the '80s. How can I put this nicely? Today in high school is nothing like it was in the
oh
80s.
no, yeah,
Let's quote the Breakfast Club. I mean, you had a jock, you had a nerd, everybody was classified in some type of realm. But I felt like I didn't play, sports. I wasn't a top A-list student, so I wasn't there. I wasn't a band guy. I was kind of a mutant. I was kind of out. I knew all these groups and I would dip my toe into them and know different people, but they could never pigeonhole me that way. And I
yeah,
felt like that was kind of the way the X-Men were. They weren't associated, they were like outside the realm of normalcy. So I don't know. Maybe I was a comic book nerd and just didn't realize it. But I think that's what drew me to the X-Men. What drew me to Batman and Superman is because they're classics. And George Reeves will always be my Superman. I don't care how many guys come after him. He was the epitome of it. And I love those movies and I love reading the books. You know, the story of him coming and it's you just can't beat them. They're the
no, I
first.
agree. No, I agree, and it's just, and I think that's interesting too. Is the generations, like George Reeves is your Superman, right? Christopher Reeves is mine. Like,
I'm sorry, I meant to say Christopher Reeves, not
oh, okay,
George Reeves. I don't know why I said George. Christopher Reeves.
yeah.
You're
So,
absolutely right.
but like, there's different generations. Like, Christopher Reeves was my Superman, right? Like, to me, he's still Superman.
Right, right.
And but now Henry Cavill has done a good job of kind of taking that mantle, and I hope that he continues on. And that's something I always find interesting is generationally, what
Right.
different people are attracted to, because there's really a whole group of people that are outside of me. They're younger than me that were big X-Men people because of that cartoon. We're big Ninja Turtles people because of that cartoon,
Yeah.
and I missed all those things.
Yeah, I didn't do I mean the X-Men cartoon was fine and I wasn't raised with turtles, so that doesn't draw me in any way. And that's great that they have that. Everybody should have that niche.
Yeah, oh,
They really
absolutely.
should.
No, and that's one of the things I find interesting about the hobby is, you can almost tell what age somebody is in the hobby based on what they truly love and,
Sure.
and the nostalgia of it. So, no, I think that's cool. So, question two, Jim, is like, what drew you to YouTube? Like, what brought you here?
Um Well, my channel is really, really small. And the only reason why I decided to start doing it originally was I was going to just put a little bit of things that I like to do. And I was going to, I think I have like maybe one detecting video up there and it's just a little bleep on my phone. Uh, and I'm going to try to start putting more of those up. It's hard to do by yourself. I think
Sure.
I need to get a GoPro or something because I need both hands and I'm holding the phone while I'm trying to dig a hole and stuff. And so I have a lot of clips, but they're not really long. They're only like maybe a minute or two. And I need to work on my editing skills and learn how to edit. But I wanted to put up that and I wanted to put up comic stuff. I love comics and I wanted to share it with other people and go, did you read this? I just did a post, I just did a video about the prints. To me, prints and art are amazing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if I can afford a piece of original art, I'll always want to get it. Why not? You know, it's yours. It's one of a kind. If I have to settle for a print, that's fine. I want to pay that guy for that print because I love his art. You
No,
know,
yeah, no, and I agree. And so let's make this question three. So obviously we all kind of collected young or were into comic books when we were young. Most of us
right?
have a hiatus in between, and then you kind of came back. So let's start there. Like, when did you come back? Like, did you get back into it like 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Like, when
Oh
did you, or were
no.
you always into it?
Well, I think mine would be when I was a kid, and then after after high school, life came into play, and then I was probably really out of it a lot in the '90s because I was, trying to get a house, pay a mortgage, send my wife to get her master's degree, and work like crazy and all that stuff. So life happened, and then when we moved here in 2000, not long after, I'd say about 2003, when my son was born, I started picking up more. I went back into it and started picking up stuff here and there, but not steady. And then and as he got older, he got into like Godzilla and stuff like that. And that's when I started. I would say that was probably like, I don't know, 2010 or something,
Mm-hmm.
2012. I mean, I started doing more regular picking up books and getting back into the hobby. And I've just been in it since then, just picking up storylines that I like, anything that's beautiful art. Yeah.
So, like, when you kind of came back into it, you were buying books here and there. Like, talk about the evolution of, like, from 2010 to where you are now. Like, because it sounds like art prints and the art aspect of this is really big to you. Like, was it always like that, or was there kind of an evolution into that point?
It wasn't it was exactly an evolution. It was I would say, I'm trying to think of the first time. See, I went to a con once when I was living in Richmond. They had a small con there. I'd never been to one. I didn't know what it was, and then when I dropped off and came back into it, I was like, "Whoa, they have this Baltimore Comic Con. I got to go check this out." And I remember my buddy and I bought a ticket to it, and I was just it's like sensory overload. There's so much there, and you're just, I bought it for a day, and I was just like, man, I need like 3 days of this. So, and that's kind of where I fell in love with Prince. I was like, wow, look at this. I could put this. It's like making a big comic book of your own, of just covers that you like, because it catches your eye. I mean, a lot of people have that same thing where they may not necessarily read the story, but man, that is a beautiful piece of art, and I have to have at least a copy of it. So yeah, I think the cons. I went to Baltimore Comic Con. We're not too far from Pittsburgh. We it's a couple hours up the road. So they had Steel City Con. I'd go there. Um, I've never been to the one in DC. I wish I had, but when it first started, but it just never worked out for some reason. Something was going on. But yeah, that was where I got into, the only thing I stayed away from was like Funkos and statues, because I have a friend of mine that he has a ton of statues. Actually, this guy, Jimmy, is he, I don't know how to describe it. I tell him all the time. I said, the American pickers, how they go
Yeah,
to people's houses. I said, what's going to happen is when he gets up there to 70 or 80, the American pickers, the guy's daughter is going to take over the show, and he's going to come to your house, man, because you're going to have to sell all this stuff. I mean, it's just all over the place. I can't be at that level.
yeah,
I don't want to be at that level. I just want to, do a little bit of, fine runs that I like to read. I love the art, so yeah, the evolution came from going to cons, really. And my son being in, he never really got into comics, but he loves Godzilla. So I was allowed to, say, hey, I can get with you behind that because it's sort of comic related, it's
sure.
nerdy. And so I love the you know, going to the cons and getting the art prints and meeting the artists. And even if, you know, some of them are really, you know, will talk to you for a while. I mean, Walt Simonson and his wife are amazing. I mean, I think I sat there and talked to him for like 20 minutes. Nobody was at their table. And I was like, how can you not be? This guy did Beta Ray Bill. He's
Yeah.
amazing, you know? So yeah, that's all part of it. That's kind of what, for me, um, like I said, back when my son got younger and he started liking Godzilla, I think that's what helped push me back into it and go, you know what? Let's see what's going on in the comic world now.
That's cool. Yeah, because like I've experienced that myself. Like, and very similar to what you're talking about is, I kind of got into it because my kids got old enough to where they were wanting to hang out with their friends, and they
Right.
weren't really wanting to hang out with me so much anymore, which is fine. That's part of it. And I kind of ventured into a comic book store, and then boom, like it relit that fire, like it had been years, and it just relit that fire. But I've gone through this evolution where at first I was buying everything, right? I was buying everything I could get my
Right.
hands on. If it was Superman, I was buying cover A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and all the way to Z if they had it.
Right.
I was buying everything. But as time has gone on, it's really gotten more specific, and I've been drawn to the art. And that's
Yeah.
when you said that, it really kind of that spoke to me because I love watching Rob Fastax. I got a shirt on here. So
Right.
Rob collects in a very cool way, in the way that he likes a lot of the art, but he's also kind of going back to the golden age,
Sure.
silver age, kind of collecting some of those older books. And it's as much about the art back then as it is anything. And I
Right.
find myself being drawn in that direction as well. Do you venture into any of like the golden age stuff, or are you dealing more in like modern bronze?
I like some of the the basics of the golden age, like some of the books that Rob's puts up and shows. I'm just like, wow, that's just beautiful. It's
Yeah,
simple. I have a certain artistic palette that I like to look at. Like I said, John Byrne, George Perez, uh, you know, Bob Layton, Frank Miller. I mean, there's certain ones that that's part of my collection. I mean, when I was reading the Daredevil, I have a small run of Daredevil. Most of it was started from that Frank Miller run.
sure.
My favorite of all the X-Men is that run, like I said, of Byrne and Claremont, because I just love the way he drew the X-Men. To me, he drew Wolverine at his best. John Byrne did. Um, George Perez. I love, I've got some Wonder Woman in here, which is not a book I would have picked up, but George Perez drew her amazing. I read all of the Teen Titans when they first came out because George Perez did a great job of I was more the artistic side. I have a brother, and I don't know, there's a video. I posted a video. He came up at this last Baltimore con. I
Yeah, I
convinced
saw
him to
that.
come up. Yeah. And we were young. It was more for him the story. For me, it was the art. I mean, I read the story and it was great, but it had to appeal to me artistically. I had to, want to sit down and look at it and go, yeah, I can get behind this. Um, I struggle to read a book if the art's not there. Um, that's why I like the story of the Department of Truth, but I struggle with the art. And
Sure.
that's just not my particular cup of tea. So yeah, I mean the artist has to be there. It has to.
No, and I think that's fair because Department of Truth is one of those. Like, now I like to read. Okay, I've said that 1,000 times on here. I really
Sure.
enjoy reading, so I've enjoyed Department of Truth. As far as a read, I'm also a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, so so I enjoy that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I've enjoyed that story, but I agree with you that the art, it makes it harder for me to read the book. Where if it's like I said, I think me and Taylor were on here one day, and I said, good art, almost it's like a movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just kind of blends through for you.
Right.
And if I have to really look at the picture to see, like there's different art styles. Yeah, no, I really, you're hitting kind of similar to what I think and what I
Correct.
see as I go through.
Yeah,
So, and
absolutely.
this kind of leads me to question 4, as far as like what you do with your books today. Now, do you read the majority of your books that you purchase, or are you more of a collector?
On my pull list, one that I have, it's always going to be something that I want to read. I'm currently reading the new Moonlight run. I like the new Moonlight run. Uh, I put Batman on there just because I found, I'm not, I wasn't reading a lot of Batman before that, but I said, you know what? They're going to do something other than the Joker. So I'm going to read it. And it's been
Sure.
okay. It's that Batman Fear State. It was
Mm-hmm.
just a different villain, and I wanted to try it. So I put that on there. I've been reading that. Probably my favorite book that I read on my pull is Nice House on the Lake.
Yeah, that's so
That's
good.
gonna that I just every issue that comes, I'm just like, when is the next one? And now we have to wait until next year to get it because
I know.
he's taking a break. So that this is my last year was my and I went into the shop one day and I was like, you know what? I'm going to dip my toe in the indies because I had not been an indie collector. I'd always been the big two. And I said, let me expand my reading a little bit here. And I asked the girl at the shop, I said, what do you recommend? And she said, why don't you read this? It's the first issue coming out and it's called Seven Secrets. And I loved it. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I was like, I put it on my pull and I can't wait to read that one every time it comes out. So yeah, I'm a reader. But it, like I said, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna circle back. It has to have good art. It
Yeah.
really has to have good art. And you know, I, uh, there's this guy right here. I don't know if you know this guy.
Oh yeah, Mr. LeMay.
Um, yeah, that's pretty good art right there.
Yeah, that ain't bad.
But when I went to Baltimore Con, I didn't know anything about this. Pocan Joe lives in Virginia, and he's not too far. He's like 45 minutes away from where I grew up. And so when he told me, he's like, these guys are going to be at Baltimore. I was like, oh, I'm going to go check them out. And I ended up buying like the first 10 issues because I can't just buy the middle run. I need to know what's going on. But the art for that it's really clean. It's not all over the place, and I could follow the story. So yeah, I'm definitely a reader, but at the same time, I have to have good art or I can't read it. It's just a struggle for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting, and I know there's a lot of things that people like. A lot of people hate, the Tinian run on Batman or not a fan of it. I've kind of enjoyed it. Like, I mean, not there's parts of it it's been boring, but
Right.
and they've introduced a ton of new characters. Really, for me, for no reason. It's just I don't know, but I still kind of enjoy it, and I think that's because it's Batman. I just like Batman, and and I kind of enjoy that. Same thing with Superman. I think the current Superman writer. Who's writing Action Comics, and it escapes me right now, of course. I think he's doing a really good job on Action Comics.
Right.
Tom Taylor's doing a great job on Superman, Son of Kal-El. Like, are you drawn more to like certain writers? I know
Um,
you said art wise, there's certain artists that you really dig, but are you drawn to certain writers?
you know what, and that would be the thing is, it's like I don't. This is what always amazes me by like Mark from Legion of Comics and stuff. They can just rattle these names off. I struggle with that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I can read the book and go, "Wow, that was really good," but sometimes I don't always remember the names of people. But yeah, definitely Tom Taylor. I read that Batman, that new Batman. What is it, King of Steel, that just came out or
Oh
something like
yeah,
that? Knights of Steel.
Knights of Steel. Yeah, yeah,
I'm definitely gonna that's on my
yeah.
pull
It was
now.
good. It was
That
so
was
good.
amazing. I like some Jeff Lemire. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the Righteous Thirst for Vengeance by Rick Remender. That's a that I will go back and look at 2 or 3 times because it's not a lot to read, but
Yeah, it's a lot of visual.
you use the art to read the story, and I kind of dug that. I was like, wow, this is a whole different type of book. So yeah, I'm going back and looking and going, man, there are some guys that I notice I gravitate towards as a writer that I never would have thought of, you know. But yeah, those guys are really good. And I don't like Nice House on the Lake. That's Tinian. I mean, that's he. You got to give him his props. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, he
he
can
is a good
write.
writer.
Yeah, he
Um,
is.
I think with his Batman, he was probably I don't want to say pigeonholed, but
Well,
you
they
know,
kind of are,
yeah, I mean,
into
there
the
is a certain
continuity.
right.
Yeah,
You have to stay within the realm of this world. Where in Nice House on the Lake, he's opening up a whole new world, and it's just that's where that's where his wheelhouse is. Leave me alone and let me write some amazing stuff for you. And he can't do that with DC and Marvel. So I get it. But yeah, no, those are some writers that I really like a lot. Um, I'm trying to think of, it's what's funny about it is to I've been going back and reading a lot of books that I had when I was young, and just reading it and laughing because looking at what they said, like watch out, chum, I'm gonna
yeah,
suck you, or and some of it was kind of like in the '70s. It was you're like they would never put that in a comic today. I mean, that's not exactly the appropriate thing to say, or I mean, comics have evolved over time to fit the position of where we are as a society.
yep.
Um, you know, they've tackled a lot. I personally want to read them just to get away from things in society. That for me personally, it's my escapism. I mean, so I try to avoid as much as I can not picking up stuff that is going to be political or
Sure.
hey, I want to tell you this. And but they've always been there. I mean, Marvel had the drug issue with Spider-Man. DC had drug issues where what was it Green Arrow and Speedy.
Yeah.
Speedy had a drug problem. And so comics realize they have to grow with what's going on in the world.
Well, no,
Um,
and X-Men is very much a look into racism, as far as
right,
race. Yeah,
right,
because of, they're mutants and they're,
right.
looked down
That
upon
was
because they're different.
right. That was when that was first published. Exactly. That was a subtle way to say, "Hey, we get it, and we're with you." With without being in your face, but the stories were also amazing.
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely. All right, so question 5, and it's kind of a new question, but I want to know, as far since jumping into the YouTube community and really the comic book community in general on Instagram and all those things, what's been the biggest surprise? Like, has there been something that surprised you since kind of joining this whole thing?
I think probably for me the biggest surprise was how awesome everybody is as far as supporting one another. I've never been in anything like that before, and it took me like, hey, here's an AOK. I didn't even know what an AOK was.
I
I had
didn't
to look
either.
that up. I was like, I'm asking my son, hey, do you know what that stands for? Because he's like, it's act of kindness, dad. And I didn't know what that was, but you know that and saying, like especially during the pandemic when when everybody was shut down and we were looking for stuff to do, and I stumbled upon this on Instagram, the mystery box of Jimmy Jams, and he put me in that chat, and I was like, man, this has really saved me from going bonkers. I mean, and but the fact that they're always willing to say, hey, I don't have this. Do you know anybody that might have it? I'm looking to finish the run. The support you get, people saying, hey, I know a guy who knows a guy that's trying to sell these. That is amazing. And YouTube for me is the fact that from a YouTube perspective, they're very supportive. You'll say, hey, why don't you come and get on this chat? You might like who we're having, or uh, I just can't get over how some of these people get some amazing creators. This guy, Brandon, Comic Kings. Have you ever seen his
Oh
channel?
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I don't know how he does it, but he gets like, he just had Marv Wolfman on. He had Marv Wolfman. He's had Bob Layton, Jim Shooter. He's got all the big ones. And, he's not Comic Tom. But he somehow he gets in there as far as his, subscriber base. I mean, you know, he's not
Sure.
a huge channel, but he is persistent. He lives in Maryland here, and we've hung out a little bit. He's a cool dude. I really like him. But yeah, no, I like how the different channels, you know, work with each other and want to, you know, do stuff together and, you know, hey, let's collaborate. So I like that. I really, for me, from YouTube, it's more about, I just want to show my stuff, and if somebody likes it, good. If I, you know, when I get around to posting some metal detecting videos, I'm sure it's going to throw the algorithm off because people are going to be like, what is that?
What is this?
Why is that? I don't know which way to, who to send to you, because, you know, you're posting two different things. But you know what? You'd be surprised. I've had a couple of guys on Instagram that are strictly metal detecting Instagram go, hey, I love that cover on that comic, post them, you know, and they'll make comments about it. And this is a guy that usually just likes what my finds are. So they're out there. There's more than just me. But
Yeah. No, absolutely. So let's get into this. This is question 6, because that's one of the things that, as far as like intrigued me about you, was
mm,
the whole metal detecting thing. And I had an uncle. You know, I talk about the uncle a lot. You know, he did the
right.
comic books, went to the flea market, those things. But he also, if they were digging somewhere, like, you know, a mine would be put in, a coal mine, and they were starting to dig, we would go and dig around in the dirt and
Right.
try to find like arrowheads. He didn't have like a metal detector or anything like that, but he would just
Yeah.
go kick around and see what he could find. So, like, what got you into that?
Um, well, first of all, I grew up in, I wish I'd had started it earlier in my life, because I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, which is, you know, huge Civil War history. Um, and I didn't really start it until I moved up to Maryland. It was during that period where, um, I don't want to put this, I was jobless. You know, I was doing the stay at home dad thing because we had our son, we started doing the math, and I was just like, wow, this is going to cost a lot of money to keep him in daycare. And I had been working for the telecom industry and had just finished a 5-year project that was, it just sucked the life out of me. I don't know if you know. I mean, like, I was working ridiculous hours,
Sure.
and Verizon was starting to lay people off. They just acquired WorldCom, and I said, you know what? Just put me on the list. I need a break. I can always go back to work eventually, but I'm about to. My health wasn't good. Mentally, I wasn't there, and I said, put me on the list and lay me off, and I'll stay at home. We were able, you know, we were in a good place financially, and I was able to do that. And I did the stay at home dad thing, but my wife started to notice that, hey, there's nothing for you. You need to do something for you. And yeah, I mean, I picked up comics here and there, but she said, I need you to get out and get air and get physical activity. And I was like, yeah, all right. So I had seen a bunch of these videos on YouTube. I'd seen guys, and I said, you know, I like history. I like local history. I'd already when we moved up here, I'd already bought books about Frederick. When I
Mhm.
move somewhere, I want to know what's going on. I want to know what has happened around here. So I knew the history of the area, and I went out and I bought a basic detector, and then I met a guy at the park, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to metal detect together?" And we would go different places and so forth. So that's kind of way it started. Is, you know, why I don't have to just watch it on YouTube. Get out there and do it.
Sure.
So that's
No, I
what I
love that.
did.
All right. So, question 7 is like, and I know this is probably a dumb question. I'm gonna ask it anyway. Is like, when you go metal detecting, like, what do you do exactly? Like, are you, you know, and I'm sure you've got the detector, you're walking around, you're listening. Like, what are you listening for? Like, what, kind of explain that whole thing to me?
Okay. Well, the first thing, and the first thing you have to understand is, 70% of metal detecting is research. All right. You're researching where you are. Is it legal to do it there? You know, there you can be in your county where you live and it's perfectly fine. One county over, They've made it no, you can't go in the park and dig a hole.
All right.
You
So why
know,
would they do that? Like, why wouldn't you
it's
be allowed
it's
to do it?
it's just it's the preference of whoever was running the county, I guess, at that time. They, some people don't. Uh, there are people out there, and this is just like any other hobby. There are people out there that do not always take care of what they do. So when you metal detecting, you're running a coil with an electromagnetic field over the ground. All right, and that will pick up metal underneath the ground, some as far as a foot deep. I mean, I've dug holes a foot deep. All right, so you're opening up this hole in the ground and taking the dirt out. And you do that at some of these parks that are really nice. And let's say you don't necessarily put all the dirt back in the hole. So now you've got this 4-foot hole, and somebody comes walking by and twists their ankle, doesn't see it at night. All right. There are guys out there that metal detect at night on fields that they know they shouldn't. They're called night hawkers. They put a bad it's not good. It's not good for the hobby, but they're out there. There are people that just don't fill their holes back in. I mean, you have to respect the property. So circling back to that, you have to research where you're going to go. And that's why some counties won't let you do it, because they've had too many problems with it. They just passed a law that said, no, you can't do it. Obviously, you can't go to any federal battlefield. You can't go to Gettysburg and start digging holes. That's how you go to jail. When I was living in Richmond, we had a Petersburg battlefield, and a guy got caught. I mean, he was selling all these Civil War bullets online, and the feds came in, and I think he got like 10 years and $100,000
No
fine.
kidding.
Oh, they don't play around. I mean,
Wow.
they do not play around. If you're making money off of something like that, and you did all that, and you know better. You know better. I work. My office is literally probably 20 yards from the Monocacy battlefield on the other, on one side of it here in Maryland, and that's a no-no. You just don't go there. But you know, that's the greatest part of detecting, is researching and then getting the permission. Asking. It's hard. I mean, if let's come to your house and go, hey Jimmy, can I dig holes in your yard? You have to approach it right. People are gonna, and you may not know, um, especially when you're in a neighborhood. You have an old house, but you got to understand, back when they were building houses, it's not like today. Today, they go and say, I'm going to buy, 40, 50 acres, and I'm going to bring in bulldozers, and I'm going to level it out, and I'm going to clear, make sure the water flows great. So there's not going to be anything on the top of the ground, because they've taken out the first, 2 feet of it.
Sure.
And then they put the houses on. Well, back in the day, the only thing they cleared out was enough for the road. You got to think, I got to have a dirt path, and then I'm going to plop my houses on it. And the houses I lived in are off from the 50s. So you figure they plowed the road, and then they dropped the houses on it. They didn't do anything to the ground. I metal detected my neighbor's house and found 3 Civil War bullets. How could that be? That's 1862. This house was built in 1950 something. It's because they didn't disturb the ground. So that's part of the research, is figuring out where you think you can get permission and where you think you might find cool stuff.
So, all right. So, question 8 is: so you've mentioned Civil War bullets a couple of
Mm.
times. Like, when you go metal detecting, like, is there something specific? Like, that's interesting. That especially where you're at, you had some of the Civil War, the different battlefields there, and yeah, you
Right.
might find those kind of things, out there. Like, is there something specific that you go to look for? I mean, are you looking for old coins? Are you looking for
I'm
Civil War bullets? Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm not a Civil War, what I call a Civil War guy. I don't have to. I'm not going, hey, we think they camped here. If I find bullets, if I find a lot of guys find what's called a J hook, and it would have been a little metal hook with a little like a button type size thing on it, and that was their hook for their knapsack. You find a lot of those. I've never found one, but I don't go actively looking for Civil War stuff. I'm more for the coins. I think, I think it's fascinating to look at our money and how it changed over the years. You can go back to, in the any if you say 1840s, all right. So an 1840s penny is going to be this big, the size of a quarter. Okay, that was a penny,
Right.
and yet they still lost them because I found them. I mean, and that's crazy, right? 1840s, 1820s. How do you lose something that big? But they did because they didn't have good garments. They lost buttons like that. But I'm a big coin, button, anything local too. I love to find local history. I did one yard and I found this Maryland Car Club badge. That guy was proud of his car. I mean, good for him. That's cool. To me, those are exciting. Anything with somebody's name on it, something I can research. My buddy that I detect with now, Colin, he found what's called the Knights of Phineas, and this thing looked really cool. And we researched it. It was all over this area, DC, Philly. The Knights of Phineas wasn't like a social club thing sort of back in the day. Um, that stuff like that's what makes the hobby so good, but
That's
coins is probably, you know
that's it for you. So, all right. So, question 9. And again, these are dumb questions, I guess, but
no, no,
it's
no.
just, I'm so interested in this. Like, so you go metal detecting, and let's say that you go into your neighbor's yard or
Hmm.
you're in a field of some kind.
Sure.
Like, how often do you find something? Like, I guess what I'm asking is, do you ever go out there and you're looking and you find nothing at all?
Absolutely. So, perfect example, go look at my first YouTube video ever. It's a metal detecting. It's about 1 minute. It was a farm from the 1800s down the road in Maryland that I had gotten. A lady I work with invited me to come and do it. And Jimmy, I went there 5 times. And the coolest thing I found was a skeleton key. And that's just blows my mind. Like, I didn't find any pennies. I didn't find modern money, nothing. I mean, like, I take that back. I found a few modern pennies and quarters over in one section, but there was nothing old. I mean, nothing. I mean, and this was a active working farm in the 1800s. I mean, yeah, you're gonna find your horseshoes,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, and your axe heads, but I didn't find any buttons. I didn't find any coins or anything. It was crazy. Like, to know that there was activity here and not to find a button. So all I could think of was, somebody had already been there.
Right.
But I talked to the woman and she goes, "Well, we've been here for 40 years, so I don't know who it was." And but I don't know. So I've struck out plenty of times. Um,
So, have you ever went somewhere and it's just like every 5 feet you find something?
yeah. You know, how can I'm gonna give you a trade secret that we haven't been revealing to the rest of the world. Is when COVID hit, um, uh, Colin and I both were just like, man, I mean, nobody's going to open the door for you. They don't even want to talk to you. So going and knocking on somebody's house was going to be impossible. So we have a fairgrounds here in Frederick that has been in that location probably since the late 1800s, like it, or early 1900s, 1901, that type of thing. There are photos of people standing in that location that we know were from the late 1800s, early 1900s. So Colin's like, look, they're not going to have fair, they're not going to do anything, let's go and ask. And we did. And we went to the fairgrounds, and you think that's probably a terrible place because there's so much trash, and it is. But this our fairgrounds have a horse track, which obviously, Kentucky, that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So they have a horse track, and the infield we decided to go hit, and it was amazing. It was like the things we pulled out of that infield. I have yet to find property that matched it. because of the fact that that land has been there for so long, I found a $50. I found no $3 there, which is insane. Um, uh, Collins found what they call seeded dimes from the 1800s. We found Civil War buttons, which we couldn't figure out why. But then we did some digging and found out that after the Civil War, I want to say it was like 25 years after, maybe longer, they did a march from Washington up to Gettysburg, and they camped. The Civil War reenactors camped there in the infield. That's why we were finding all these Civil War buttons. There was just so you could do no wrong. I mean, we could probably still go there today and find stuff. It's just probably one of our best hunted spots that I don't think anybody thought to look at. And that's going to be in my top 10 for life.
That's really cool. So, all right, I got to go back to this because I don't quite understand. I just want to make sure I get it. So, like when you find something,
Sure.
does it make a certain sound? Like
It
you
does.
can like there's a ding or
Right. So every machine is different. The first machine I ever had was very basic. It would just make a ding, but the screen would move the bar to what it was. So it would have like dime, penny, nickel, blah 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 blah. Gold, trash, whatever. And it would move that little dial over there, but it was always just a ding, ding, ding. So it wasn't anything special. But then when I upgraded to my next machine, I said, man, I got to go to the next level. And I got one that has multi-tone for, it's got multiple tones so that if you have iron, it makes like a grunt sound, and you may not want to dig iron because it's nothing,
Sure.
but if you come across like something that has a higher conductivity, it's going to make a higher ping sound, and that's what you want to dig. It also makes like a tone in the middle that is like for a nickel or uh, foil or something like that. The funny thing is you can have a $200 machine or a $2,000 machine. The science is the science. So the weird thing, and don't ask me the deep idea of why this is, but a pull tab off of a pop is going to ring up just like a gold ring.
Really?
Yes. All those guys out there on the beach say, let me see what's in your bag. And they'll pull out all this trash because they have to dig it if they want the gold. I used to hunt with a guy that was strictly a gold nut. I mean, he wanted to find gold rings. And at the end of the day, he would have bag full of trash. And every once in a while, he'd get a gold ring. But that's just the way the science works, where the way the field picks it up. A lot of the machines now have numbers on it. So they'll give it a range and say, if this is an 88 to a 92, that's a high silver number. That's where you want to be. If you're down here in the 40s and 30s, that's trash.
You're not going to waste your time digging that.
So it helps you to delineate where to dig and where not to. That's part of it. It has a depth meter. Now that will fluctuate depending on the actual soil. The number will fluctuate depending on the actual soil. The sound should be the same, but those two readings, the soil type makes a big difference. We've been to places where it's a sandy soil and it'll say, oh, it's 4 inches deep. And you're like, that's not 4 inches. That thing is sunk in the ground a little farther. But the soil around here in Frederick is very rocky. So when it says 4 inches, it's usually 4 inches. Very rarely is it off, but it depends on that a lot.
So when you're filling a hole back, and I know, or let me ask this first. All right, so when you dig, so say it's 4 inches deep. It's told you that it's 4 inches deep, and you're estimating that. How big of a spot do you dig? Like, is it a big circle, and then you kind of sift through what you dig up, or
right?
How does that work?
So what happens is, okay, so let's, I should talk about this for a second too. You can get multiple different sizes of coils to put on the end of your machine. Okay, so the machine is basically, hold on. See that? That's kind of what the machine looks like.
Okay.
So you have the arm cuff, the actual body, and then the coil runs down to this coil. All right, this can be swapped out, and you can get one that's this big. I've got one that's the size of a hockey puck because I want to go in little small areas. And then I've got one that's the size of a, 15, 20 inches wide for when I'm out in the field and I want to get a big swing and cover a lot of area. But usually I go with a small coil because I'm only looking for something that's the size of a quarter. So I don't need to make a big hole. I just make a little, you cut basically. A lot of times what you want to do is cut not a complete circle. You want to almost do like a 3/4 circle. You pull back the top layer. And especially if you're in a yard, you bring a cloth with you and you take out the loose dirt and put it on the cloth so you can put it back in. And then I have what's called a pin pointer that's about that long. And it's sort of like another metal detector, but it just, you put it in the ground and it'll beep if it's near the target. And it usually only goes about 1.5 inches to 2 inches past where you're pointing. So imagine you're you're looking down in this hole and you're like, well, I don't see it. So you pull out your pin pointer and you move it around the hole and you say, oh, it's right here. I just need to dig a little further. And that way you don't make a big mess. And you put the dirt back in the hole. You retrieve the target. You put the dirt back in the hole. You clump it up. And what I do personally is I take, I have a shovel, but I also have a knife that's called a lesh when I want to dig. And I'll push the lesh into the middle of the hole. So the next time it rains, water goes in and recirculates those grass roots. So you don't leave a big mess.
And that goes back to what you were saying, because in my mind when you were talking about it earlier, I was envisioning you going out there. Oh, here's a spot with a big shovel, and you're just digging these massive holes. And You're actually not doing that. You're actually kind of cutting the top layer of the grass, essentially, where you can pull it back.
Right.
And then you dig out from under it. That way you can fill it back in, put it back down. It's like you were never there.
Right. And you, in order to get, you have to do that when you're in somebody's yard. You just have to. And I don't care if, I have a rule of thumb. I will not go and knock on a door if I know that a person is paying for yard care. I'm not going to do it because they're going to say no. They're like, hey, I spend $15,000 a year on yard care. I'm not going to have you digging holes. I don't even waste the time. But even if I get a permission to go to a house and they say, sure, I want to do my best to take care of that yard because I wouldn't want anybody to do that to me. I don't want them coming in my yard digging holes and making a mess. When you're out in the field, that's different. You still fill your hole, but you don't have to be as dainty because it's being plowed over. It's going to be, they're going to run that plow through it. When you're out in there's a horse farm that I want to go back to. I think there might have been some stuff there, but I have to research because I don't want to just go out. It's 125 acres. I don't want to just go out there in the field and start swinging. I kind of want to have an idea if anything was there.
Yeah.
So I told the lady, I said, I might be back as soon as I do some more research. And she's hoping that I'll come back and do more because she really liked it and, like seeing what it was.
But it's kind of interesting. Really, you think about something being there on your property and, like I said, here we always found a lot of Indian heads, old coins. Yeah. There was some Civil War stuff here, not a ton, but that kind of thing. So no, I think that's insanely interesting. Like I legit am disappointed now that I didn't do this entire 10 questions on metal detecting. Like that is so insane. Well, no, I enjoyed the comic book portion, but I'm so intrigued by this that it just kind of blows my mind. So I don't know which one to make question 10. So I'm going to just ask this here.
Okay.
What's the coolest thing you've ever found? Like, what's the most insane thing you ever found? Like you found it, you're like, oh my God.
Well, it'd probably be, and I'm gonna see if I have it right here. I don't know if I put it away or not. Yeah, it would probably be this. This is a 1917 Walking Liberty $50.
Wow.
And that's 90% silver.
Yep.
1917. That would have been prior to World War II, but I think after World War One. And yeah, just finding that where I found it, I was like, how did it get here? You know, it was in the middle of a nowhere field. I'm like, how did this get here? What was here that caused this? That was probably one of my coolest finds. The other one would be, um, like I said, I personally am drawn to personalized things. Another cool thing was back in the day, a man would give a woman a good luck token, and that would have just been as early as the 40s or 50s, and said good luck on this, or I love it. Was sort of their way of expressing their love. And I found a token that had two names on it, so that was kind of cool. It was, yeah, I was like, oh, this guy liked her, and this is how they, they couldn't afford a ring, so they give you this aluminum good luck token that probably didn't cost a lot, because they probably had something that made it, like a stamp type thing. I don't really have a favorite find. I found an 1840 half cent in the middle of this florist.
Wow.
This florist was shutting down. I said, can I go in your back area here where there's ground? And he's like, sure. And I was like, wow, how did this get here? It's crazy.
Do people look at you like you're insane when you ask to go metal
No,
detecting, or do they get it because of the area you live in?
yeah, they kind of get it from the area. I mean, even some people will go and say, hey, it's been hunted before. I personally don't believe a place is hunted out, because you might have gone there and said, hey, can I metal detect it? And they said, sure, but you may not know your machine well. You just may not have swung across it. I may find something that you totally missed. We've been to places that were quoted hunted out and found all kind of cool stuff. So this area, not so much. One of the things that as my pitch, and I look at it as a pitch, I'm trying to convince you to let me dig. One of I always say, hey, look, just let me get a picture of it, and you can have it. I don't have to have it physically. I just, if you want to keep anything that I find, it is yours. This is your property. Just let me shoot a photo to say that I found it. It's just like catch and release.
Sure.
You know, some
How
farmers
interesting.
will let you fish in their pond, but they won't let you keep it. You got to throw it back in the pond. This is the same way to me. I want it to be yours. For all I know, your family's been there for 150 years. It is yours. It's personal. This could have been your great grandfather's. I don't know, but I don't want to ever assume that, hey, it's mine. It's yours first. If you choose to let me have it, I'm happy. But if not, I've done a yard, and the guy says, no, I want it all. I'm like, great, chick chick, it's yours.
Yeah.
I got a photo to prove that I found it. You can have it and do whatever you want. Because as soon as you tell people there's value, that's when they're like, oh, really?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You can go find it and bring
Maybe
it
I
to
will
me.
keep
Yes.
this. I can take this to the pawn store and get me, because that coin's probably like, I don't know, $20. I mean, it's like finding $20 in the ground.
Yeah.
It's just like comic books. It depends on, you can get them graded. It's condition.
Right. Yeah. Always. All right. So that brings me to question 10. And so I was going to ask you this earlier, and then I kind of got into this, but like it sounds like to me like the whole metal detecting thing, it's almost treasure hunting. Is essentially what you're doing in some sense. But I really dig the historical kind of perspective that you put on it, because I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Like you're having to research an area, the history of it, why something would be here.
Right.
So, and I want to wrap the two back together, comic books and the whole metal detecting thing. So, do you like to go hunt comic books like you do metal detecting, like going into back bins and digging into stuff, almost treasure hunting,
Oh yeah.
so to speak? So there's a draw for you in both
Oh
ways.
yeah. Like like I was telling you about my buddy Dave, the one that has the statues and all this other stuff. I mean, he has way more I think I probably have more comics than he does, but he has a lot more stuff. He's got Funkos and statues. One day I said, Dave, let's do some hunting. like real hunting. Like, let's map out the state of Maryland and hit comic shops. So we did that. We got up one Saturday morning and we had mapped it out. We said we're going to start here and we'll work over here and we'll circle back to where we live. And we went to, like, I want to say 4 or 5 different LCSs, and just, you know, the first thing I do is go to the back bin because I can get anything on the wall. There's not going to be anything new there for me. So I'm a big believer. Can I pull a diamond in the rough, you know? And how much am I going to pay for it? Is it going to be worth it? There's plenty of good LCSs out there that to me, it's just like treasure hunting, baby. If you can find, and you know it, you're like, this is a first appearance and they got it for like $5. This is crazy.
Right.
I'm a big believer in that.
That's awesome, man. No, what an interesting interview. Like that was unbelievable, Jim. Thank you so much for coming on, brother.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
Thank you for
I'll
having
put
me.
all Jim's stuff down in the description below. And let's support Jim in trying to, kind of share his stuff on YouTube, and hopefully he gets into this metal detecting thing a little more, being able to post videos. He's probably going to have somebody actually come out and film him. That's the thing. You may have to get you a camera crew, right, to actually do that right and well.
Right.
Yeah. So, but no, that was great. But I'll put all Jim's stuff down in the description below. Make sure you go check my boy out. Go sub him up. Great follow on YouTube and IG. Where he does a little bit of both. And one of the cool things I mentioned in the introduction that, he sold a mystery box or two. And his mystery boxes are cool because they do come with these cool comics, but he always puts these real unique coins in there. Like you have a chance at something unique with the coins. So very, very cool. Be on the lookout for that too from him. That's just, it's a unique twist on a comic book mystery box that the last one I got from him I loved. Like I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So yeah, go check my guy out. Of course, make sure you check out Street Level Hero LA. Use that code STC10. Get 10% off your order over there, but they will donate 25% of your overall order to the American Cancer Society for cancer research. Phenomenal cause. Raised a lot of money for that through the comic book community. So thank you for that. Yeah, that was insanely interesting. I hope you guys enjoy it. That's been 10 questions.